We'll title this short meditation, Just a Little Something. I am out taking an afternoon drive, and I thought maybe I would share something that is something that we do, and it's something that we've known of for many, many years. And it basically has to do with your spiritual perception. As some of you may know, if you've studied the human body is made up of 7 chakras. Chakra is a probably more of an Indian term, and it basically speaks of energy vortex points where the body assimilates energy that comes to it, emotional or mental, spiritual, that type of thing. There are 7 chakras along the meridian of the human body. This is definitely not New Age. This is how the body has been comprised, and God has made it. So it's interesting because I'll tell you a short story. As my children were growing up, we would sit around the table and we would have some wild and woolly discussions. No holes barred. We would just talk about whatever we wanted to talk about. And a lot of times it came around to spiritual things, spiritual experiences, just things that perhaps they were experiencing and they didn't understand what it was or if it meant anything. So my youngest daughter was going into the 7th grade, and I think it was the first or second day that she'd gone, and she came home and said, "Daddy, I've got a question." I said, "Okay." She says, "As I'm looking at the teacher, everything around him is yellow. It's more than just an aura around his head. It's just, everything around him is like this big yellow hue. What does that mean?" I said, "Well, yellow has to do with the mental chakra. It has to do with the mind. And when you see an extensive amount of yellow around someone, that just means that they are moving from the realm of their mind, from the realm of deduction and analysis." But to keep it simple, for her, I just said, yeah, he's just moving out of his mind and teaching from a book. So that's kind of what you're seeing. If it had been green, then he would have been moving more from his spirit, because the spiritual things come up oftentimes in green. Whereas if he was speaking and you saw a lot of red, red usually is connected with rebellion and the satanic hosts. And then there's other colors, brown and just different things. But anyway, it's just a little short story. And every once in a while I have to remind her about that. So what I'm really just trying to say is that the body is comprised of 7 chakras. These chakras are like little mini vortexes where energy is assimilated. So like when you are looking or watching or hearing or reacting or whatever, I'm sure maybe you haven't really thought about, well, where does this, how do I experience hearing? What's scientifically going on? You know, and it really has to do with how this energy, how this input is entering into your being, because you're a spiritual being, an energetic being. Everything about you is energy, and the more we understand that, the more we understand ourselves, because we are, energy, and and that's what comes into play so often in how we function through our daily lives, and how we create, how we see ourselves, the projection of energy. And that's how the enemy seeks to control, by projecting negative energy. And as that is assimilated and you receive it, it can bring you down, or it can build you up. Uh, so we could go on and talk about a lot here in this whole arena. But it's fascinating the more we begin to understand what we are. We're not beings of humanity. We're not like everyone else. Contrary to maybe an opinion, we're not like everyone else. And there are a number of factors that enter into how we function, and what it really means, and how do you break it down? What is the experience of it? What's happening when I hear, when I see, when I respond? What's really going on here? And it really has to do with understanding ourselves and what God has created us to be. So, anyway, back to the chakras. So, the chakra that I want to really talk about here for a moment is the sixth chakra. Now, that chakra is located just between your eyes, up about the middle of your forehead. And that chakra has to do with the function of what is called the pineal gland. And you can look that up. It's a gland that we have in the body. That pineal gland is responsible to an extent of how we see, of our ability to perceive. And the more the pineal gland is activated, which happens when you wait upon God, it comes alive. And that sixth chakra, you begin to, that's really where your spiritual sight comes from. It's right there. You might say, you really had just one eye. As weird as that might sound, you have one eye. And it's right there between your eyes, in the middle of your forehead. So stay with me here. To some of you, this might seem a little weird, but it just is what it is. And so that is the function point where we see. So the one thing I just wanted to talk about here briefly is, how do you activate that pineal gland? Is there anything that you can do? Well, like I said, you're waiting upon the Lord, your singing, your meditation, your worship, all of that comes into play in helping to activate that gland. But on a physical level, what's fascinating to me is that the consumption of citrus, like orange juice, plays an unusual role in activating the pineal gland. A lot of times, I'll get up at 2 or 3 in the morning, excuse me, and I'll have a big glass of orange juice, and I'll go back to sleep, and oftentimes that's all it takes to push me over, and the visions will start to come, or my ability to recall the visions. And it's just a very simple little key. The citric acid, the citrus, but more specifically, I found it for myself with orange juice or oranges. It may work, probably works with any of it, but for me, I could get up and have a fruit bowl, and doesn't quite have the same dynamic. I could have a grapefruit, but I don't really love grapefruit that much. So just a glass of orange juice before going to bed, or maybe in the middle of the night, has had a positive dynamic in activating the pineal gland, which is the sixth chakra. So that's really all I wanted to say. This, like I said, this is a very short meditation. I know we dove into some pretty deep waters here, but I think most of you, if you've read our books, you've already been exposed to all this stuff. Anyway, Ann and I send our blessing. This is the day that our sight and our vision is opening up. Amen.